This video contains topics that some viewers may find distressing. At times we discuss methods that sexual offenders within the aid sector have used against people who have been struck by disasters or emergencies. If you feel uncomfortable now or at any time throughout the video, do stop watching and contact support channels within your organisation. You are not alone. In this video, we use the terms survivor and victim interchangeably. Hello. As one of our volunteers, operations or field staff contributing to delivery of projects or services, you are vital to the Red Cross and Red Crescent community. All of you are working around the world, helping people and communities. Today, we want to talk about a sensitive issue: sexual exploitation and sexual abuse. In this video, we look at the vital role you can play to help stop sexual exploitation and abuse. You'll see practical steps that we have developed in conversation with some of your fellow volunteers and operations staff, and learn more about how you can use the IFRC PSEA manual. So why are we having these conversations? Because we know that saying we will not tolerate abuse has not proved enough. Reports of sexual exploitation and abuse, or SEA, continue to surface when and where aid agencies are at work. And if we do not act, people will be harmed and we will lose the trust they place in us. So, what can we do as staff and volunteers? Everyone in the organisation has a part to play, and this is how you can make a difference. Esther is one of our volunteers. She knows that there are people with power, whether it is power over jobs, money, or resources, who misuse their power to make people do things against their will. Esther knows that any community or humanitarian organisation can be targeted by unethical aid workers who commit sexual exploitation and abuse. But she also knows that risks are heightened where there is crisis or conflict and when people are in vulnerable situations. Like other volunteers, Esther recognises that this is a serious issue. She understands the damage caused by people who commit SEA to people and communities. Esther knows that survivors, their families, and those who want to speak out often feel that they cannot. They worry that they cannot protect themselves against possible retaliation. They will be stigmatised by community members, or that nothing will change. As a National Society volunteer, Esther wants our organisation to be a place which supports anyone affected by SEA, a place where those who are prevented from speaking up will be heard, and a place that puts care for survivors of SEA at the heart of our response. Esther wants to know how our organisation can help make a difference when it comes to SEA. She wants to be confident about what steps she can take as a volunteer. All our volunteers should have had the opportunity to receive training on the prevention and response to sexual exploitation and abuse, which sets out 3 important steps to take: how to recognise, respond, and report SEA incidents and concerns. Everyone in the National Society has a part to play. Esther knows she can access training on how to recognise, respond, and report, or the 3 Rs, via our PSEA video or the guidance in the IFRC PSEA manual. She can also speak with a PSEA focal point in her National Society or partner National Society. Esther is now confident about what to do if a colleague or community member reports an incident or allegation. She understands what volunteers can do, such as finding a safe place to listen and maintaining confidentiality, and what they can't, such as making promises you cannot keep or investigating the incident yourself. Esther has also found out how her local reporting system works for SEA. She understands how to make a report via her National Society's Human Resources Department, or PSEA focal point. Esther also makes note of the fact that IFRC has an independent and confidential reporting platform for use by any Red Cross and Red Crescent personnel. All SEA concerns must be reported locally or via the IFRC. Save these contact details to your phone now. As we work harder to address SEA, we know our volunteers matter, as they are the eyes and ears of the movement. Esther knows that using her local insight and understanding how to recognise, respond, and report concerns means that change can start to happen. But what about the communities in which we work? How else can volunteers and staff use their valuable local understanding to help protect those who are vulnerable to SEA? Patience is one of our volunteers. She knows that whilst SEA is an issue that may affect every community, and that there are attitudes, customs and practices that mean that some can face greater risks than others, whether it is early marriage and female genital mutilation, or discriminatory practices which can put people with disabilities or other minority groups at heightened risk of being targeted by aid workers committing SEA, and that people can also be at risk if they are displaced through crisis or conflict, or rely on others for access to jobs or resources. Patience knows that the picture can be complex and that survivors can feel shame and fear. She knows that it is not enough to just say SEA should not be tolerated and that SEA cannot be covered up. Patience wants to act to protect others, but knows that volunteers and staff need to understand how to act. Patience puts up posters and distributes leaflets about SEA. It is a good way to make sure that people can read or see key messages and be clear that SEA is an important issue that the National Society will act on. Patience also works with colleagues to make sure people with disabilities or those who cannot read or write will hear and understand key PSEA messages. Patience knows the IFRC PSEA manual covers the issue of PSEA in depth so that she can refer to it if she needs more guidance. She makes sure that other volunteers also have material and messages that they can share. Together, they agree on where else to display the information, such as in the health centres and schools we are supporting. She contacts a local radio station and offers to read out key messages on PSEA in local languages. Patience knows how important it is to talk and listen to people. It helps build trust, and trust is particularly important for people who are in vulnerable situations. In time, community members will share concerns if they believe that they will be supported. If a survivor does not wish to be identified, Patience can still report an allegation or incident through her local reporting system as part of our prevention work, while keeping the identity of the survivor protected. What matters to Patience is that our organisation supports people in vulnerable situations, and that our volunteers and staff are supported to act too. Our volunteers have told us that attitudes surrounding SEA can be hard to challenge or change, but great change can start in small ways. Here's how. Samuel is an experienced volunteer. He knows how vital our work is to the communities we support. Samuel knows the severe impact SEA can have on people, families and communities. He recognises that it cannot be tolerated. Samuel believes in the principle of do no harm. He knows that it must include how we treat each other. Samuel has found that the best teams are the ones where everyone is treated fairly, with dignity and with respect. And that although we cannot change attitudes towards SEA in every community and every institution, we can make those changes for ourselves. Samuel develops the confidence to talk about expected standards of behaviour amongst colleagues. He is respectful towards other volunteers and staff and takes part in conversations about why not tolerating SEA is important, and about how we can challenge attitudes towards the shame or stigma associated with SEA. Survivors, their families, and those who report concerns should not face discrimination or bullying, and Samuel has conversations with colleagues about how that support begins with us, by openly discussing attitudes to the code on SEA that no one connected to the Red Cross Red Crescent movement can engage in any sexual activity with anyone who looks to or benefits from our protection or assistance. Sexual relationships with a member of the affected or vulnerable population are not allowed. Sexual activity with any child or any person under the age of 18 is not allowed, regardless of the age of majority or consent locally. Not knowing the age of a child is not a defence. And that No one can exchange money, employment, goods, or services for sex at any time. Use of sex workers is not allowed, inside or outside working hours, regardless of what local laws allow. By listening to others and being aware of SEA, Samuel also learns more about people in the communities we support and other organisations who are willing to make a change and work together towards PSEA. He is able to signpost survivors of domestic or sexual abuse to local organisations that can support them, and he knows how to report concerns about SEA. Although it is true that change will not come overnight, by communicating with others, we can all make a vital start. The work that Esther, Patience and Samuel are involved in will prove crucial to us all. And what Esther, Patience and Samuel do, you can do too. Their hard work is the difference between saying we do not tolerate sexual exploitation and abuse and acting on it. You can access the PSEA manual and use its tools and guidelines, and when you understand the critical role you can play in PSEA, we all benefit: your colleagues, our volunteers, and the communities in which we work. Together, we can all make changes to how we work, and together, we can help prevent sexual exploitation and abuse. This is our commitment, but it is nothing without your commitment. Recognise, respond, report.